Johnson, and this is Focus on Liberia. Hit it! From Cape Mount to Cape Palmer, mountain back to Atlantic Ocean, Obomi Hills to Pocondre, to educate, elevate, and promote. Talk about home affairs, hey, in diaspora, current affairs, hey, reliable information, history, ooh, talking about culture, hey, politics, education, entertainment, business, sports, advertisement, articulation. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. From Monday to Sunday.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Focus on Liberia. This is Between the Headlines on Focus on Liberia. My name is Desja, and we are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. In tonight's edition of our show, Between the Headlines on Focus on Liberia, we're going to be in a conversation with the Executive Director of the Liberian Association of Metropolitan Atlanta. That's Mr. Bior Bropleh. Mr. Bropleh, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mr. Ja, for inviting me to the show. I'm excited to be here. You've come a long way, and I want to publicly commend you for the great work that you're doing for journalism.
Thank you. And Bior is originally from Liberia. The first time he went to school, he was so used to crew, they asked him for facts, and he said something. But he's a global marketing executive and community builder who has traveled extensively throughout Africa, Asia, Europe, and North America, creating meaningful impact in business and nonprofit sector. I too have experience with Bior. I know during our heated elections in 2016, 2015, Bior, they were the opposition, but we managed to win, and they were the few. Normally, after election, with all the chaos, a lot of people go away. Bior and the rest of them were able to stay, and I was in charge of organizing the government, so to speak, and Bior played a meaningful role. So I know him for some time now. His wealth of business experience with major multinational corporations, including Mazda, AT&T, and Home Depot, Nampa, Auto Parts, has resulted in significant gains for multi-billion-dollar global brands. He also has extensive experience as a strategic organizational consultant. He was the one who did the LAMA first strategic planning meeting in 2016. True. And I tell you, they were wonderful. He has held multiple executive roles with ISEC, the largest student-run nonprofit in the world, and served as the chairman of the board of advisors of ISEC at the University of Georgia for nearly a decade. He currently leads the ISEC alumni chapter in Georgia and serves as membership chair on the national board of directors for ISEC Alumni Association called ISEC Life. Mr. Bropleh is a former co-chair of the board of directors of LAMA, that's the Liberian Association of Metropolitan Atlanta, an organization that supports over 225,000 immigrants in Georgia and served as the executive director since January 2022. Mr. Bropleh is happily married, and he lives in Georgia with his daughter, Mana. Got it, Nick, all right?
You got it. You got it.
Yeah. Welcome, Mr. Bropleh. We are glad to have you.
Thank you. Thank you. For a second there, I didn't know if that was me you were talking about. I don't know where you
That's
gathered all
you.
that information from, but thank you very much. I'm honored.
Thank you. Again, ladies and gentlemen, if you have not already shared the show, please share the show, invite someone, and let's talk about our Liberian Diaspora organization. As I told you, Mr. Bropleh is the executive director of LAMA. Prior to Mr. Bropleh, we used to have president, vice president, and so his leadership since 2022 has changed that. So, Mr. Bropleh, let me ask you, what
Sure.
inspired you to take on this role as the ED for our community, and how has your global experience shaped your leadership?
Well, thank you. Thank you, Dennis. Again, thank you for inviting me to this program. I want to thank your listeners for being a part of this, and I'm sure they're going to be interactive. So I look forward to it. But to your question, what inspired me to take up leadership in the community? I think we'll have to delve a little bit back into how I was reared. I was always reared by my parents, the late Dr. Nato Patrick Bropleh and Mrs. Mary Tor Bropleh, who is alive and well in Powder Springs, Georgia here. They raised us to be servant leaders, selfless. So, growing up in the Catholic Church, we're always a part of the Catholic Youth Organization. And service was always very important to us growing up. And when I moved to Georgia, I just looked for opportunities to continue to support. And I was thankful for you and the former president Yasidi Kwaye's wholehearted welcome of us, even though, as you said, we're with the opposition. But you opened the doors to collaboration and to tapping into different ideas, and I think that was a huge strength. And just supporting the organization over the years and seeing the challenges. After the pandemic, especially, the pandemic was especially harsh on many organizations, right? The late Bishop William Harris
Yeah.
reached out to me personally and said, "My son, every day you're doing strategic plan for people, you're doing this and that. Right now, we don't have any leader. This is your time." And I said, "But, Bishop, I prefer to support from the back, and empower other people." He said, "My son, there's not the time for that right now. We need you to step up." And so, after some thoughtful reflections with my family and close friends, I decided to help out, and that's why I put my hat in the race. Of course, I ran on the polls. I believe there were no contestants at the time. Things were in pretty bad shape, Dennis, as you can recall, after the pandemic. Nearly all of our systems were down. So I had to dig deep, pull out all those strategic plans that we did, dusted it up, seeing how we can enhance it a little bit. And as they say, the rest is history, right?
Yeah. 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 I mean, I was part of it. I watched you, come into the organization. I remember when it was sometimes very chaotic. You would be at the front there, asking questions, and always your questions were, kind of geared towards, okay, let's take a step back, let's look forward, and let's look at the big picture. And so it was very easy for us to go after people like that and say, hey, come, let's work together.
Oh,
So, and
appreciate it.
since then we were able to. But let's talk a little bit about, since you took over, how has things been, with Lama? And this is your second term. You are almost at the end of your second term. How has it been?
Absolutely. Well, I can safely say that, I'm blessed and the community is blessed. I think a lot of times chaos, as we described it, is just a function of a lack of vision or direction. I think we all have goodness in us. And if you can take some time just to lay out some key processes and help people to see how it will be mutually beneficial to participate, you will see the better side of people, if you will. I remember one of my in fact, my first meeting when your administration had come into power. I remember that first meeting very well because I had heard something I hadn't heard in a community organization before. Somebody threatened the president at the time, Mrs. Clay, and she said, "Look, I'm 5'4", 180 pounds. Do not rush me on this platform." And I was like, wow, why is somebody being that aggressive to somebody who's volunteering to lead the community to where she had to defend herself? And so I reflect on that in the past and over the time, the work that we've put in. Dennis, I'm going to jump the gun and say my biggest vision was to have an orderly environment where people can thrive. And I know when we work together, that was always the vision that was crafted. Was it in 2016?
16.
At this,
Yeah.
okay, 2016, when we did the strategic plan, we all agreed that we needed a wholesome environment for people to thrive. I'm happy to report to you, Dennis, that so many years later, and it was interrupted by the pandemic, it could have come sooner, but we're now at the place where if you went to a LAMA meeting today, you will see an orderly meeting with very respectful participants collaboratively working towards resolving challenges in the community. That's our biggest legacy. And in 2016, we envisioned it. In 2025, nearly a decade later, it's a reality.
Great. And that is for someone, who is listening to this, that's a very good way of presenting it, right? But what have you been able to accomplish as a result of that, of what you just described?
Right. So one of the first things that we did, and this started, by the way, before I even took over, was to develop the culture of planning. Taking some time out to really think through what are the key pain points that we're identifying in the community, who's our addressable market that we need to take care of, and what are some of the key things we can do to resolve the challenges that we see. So that's the first thing I advise any organization, and I advise many organizations. When you get into office, the first thing you need to do, our instinct is move forward immediately. I advise people against that. I said, when you get into office, the first thing you do is do a retreat. That's why it's called a retreat. A strategic retreat means take a step back to survey the land before you start moving forward. So take 1-2 days. Everybody has different requirements. Take a couple of days to retreat and think through what it is you're actually trying to do. That culture has now been set. What that does is it lays the foundation for everything to come. People say, why are your meetings so orderly? It's orderly because we have a strategic plan that we're working towards. That's the first thing. The second thing is, and as a result of that, those key pillars that we came up with, those key pillars are foundational. Community outreach, right? We always say Liberians or people in the diaspora are not united. Yeah, we all said that, but what did we do, Dennis? In 2016, we did it again in 2018, 2020. Every year, we dissected what does it mean to not be united and how can we overcome it. So we broke it down. Community outreach. I mean, support, during times of bereavement, celebrations, whatever. End of year celebration, gift giving. We're now planning a Thanksgiving, service. back to school giveaways. We recently had a back to school giveaway. So just being present in the environment, in the community, in a direct way is critical. Then cultural awareness. We always talk about, the Liberian brand. And when you and I talk, you said that's your goal for Focus on Liberia is to enhance the Liberian brand. Am I right? Well, it's all of our it's all of our responsibility, not just Focus on Liberia. Everybody has the responsibility to enhance the Liberian brand. So how do we do this? We engage with stakeholders in the community. We have culturally rich independence celebrations, right? We take part in international expos all across the city. We engage with other communities in Georgia from other countries, right? To share the Liberian perspective. Every year, the Gwinnett Chamber has a massive mixer. They invite Liberia every year. And because of that, people know Liberia. And that's important. The third thing, I remember I said there was 5 key things that we always do, right, Dennis? The third thing is health and wellness.
Yeah.
Right? Something we take for granted. Dennis, I get phone calls. Trust me, I get phone calls. My number is public, is on the website. I get phone calls from people who are in medical emergencies and are trying to figure out what to do. And I say, but call 911. LAMA is not a medical institution. They're like, no, but we want to know what to do. We want to know what to do first before we call. So health and wellness, we overlook it, but in immigrant communities that always like to look inward, it's a critical issue. So we've probably one of the things that we're proudest of, Dennis, is the partnerships that we've established around health and wellness. And those took years to cultivate to the point where if the big Liberian church, ICF, every year they do a service in memorial Bishop Harris, who passed away a couple of years ago. They call it Bishop Day of Service. We support them with medical supplies that we get from our partners. It could be just, blood pressure, cuffs, medication, whatnot. Every year we do health fairs, right? To give immigrants access to free screenings. And you'll be shocked at how impactful that is. It's something we overlook. Those people who work for corporate entities know that you have health insurance, you get your free checkup every year, you think life is rosy. Some people don't have that. So we want to provide that, but not just LAMA instituting it. We have plans with our partners right now to provide that year round to where people can access free screenings year round, right? That's really important. We do food distribution, a minimum of 2 that we do every year where we're able to provide fresh produce to over 1,000 families. But again, that's nothing because we know how large the community is and how dispersed it is, right, in Georgia. It takes 1 hour and 20 minutes for me to drive from my house to my brother's house. But we all say we're in Atlanta, right? It's very wide. So we're looking at partnering with other entities. We partner with state and local officials in Jonesboro. We're able to do a food distribution there that fed over 400 families. And we're partnering with another organization in downtown Atlanta that has a massive food warehouse where we're going to draft up an MOU, work with them, provide some resources, and be able to feed people on a regular basis, not just once or twice a year. And I think that'll be hugely impactful. Then the issue of the day, immigration and legal advocacy, right? I won't go to the legal side. I mean, I can't tell you how many calls I get from Liberians who are locked up for multiple reasons, DUI, domestic violence, and whatnot. And they're all asking for the same thing, Dennis. Guess what they're asking for? Can you please write a letter saying what a good person I am? So the judge can know that I'm a good person. Right? So people look to their community leaders to sort of back them up when their back is against the wall. But that's very reactive. We don't want to be in that situation. We want people to know ahead of time to stay out of those situations. So along with our legal advisor, attorney Patience Sadie, we try to provide that input. Patients regularly, whenever I get information on a panel being convened, we reach out to patients. She's always gracious. She sat on multiple panels where people are sharing legal advice to immigrants, but also immigration advice, right? Especially now with the stringent tightening of rules, if you will, by the administration. It's
Mhm.
even more
Yeah.
important to know what you're up against. We don't want to have Dennis. It's crazy, but last year I had 3 people call that were detained by ICE. I mean, at
Mm.
that level, Dennis, there's nothing you can do, right? When you're already in detention, the best you can do is to give people resources ahead of time so they can make the right decisions. So legal
Right.
advocacy is critical. And then the last but not
Mm.
least is the whole issue of what we call JEB, jobs, entrepreneurship, and business. What are we doing to empower our people to be able to fend for themselves in this amazing economy that we find ourselves in? We have countless, I shouldn't say countless, we have a number of partnerships with chambers of commerce, the Gwinnett Chamber, um, the Atlanta Black Chamber. In fact, for the first time, LAMA has a booth at this year's Atlanta Black Chamber Go Global Conference
Yes.
coming up next week. So people will be able to
Okay.
go to that conference, come to the LAMA booth, learn about Liberia, and see how we can connect our businesses. So those are just some achievements that we've been able to accomplish over this time.
Thank you. Those are good, right? So we're gonna go a little bit back, right? Because
Yeah,
several times you mentioned the strategic planning, because that is
yeah,
key. Because all the good things that you are listing now, you are saying even before you get to that point, you got to do something. And so, because you made mention of it, let me see if I can post something like this on the screen, even though it's kind of little bit. Because what we said that time, and it's important that you said it. So
yeah,
at that time when we did a retreat, and even before, yeah. So we work on this was the abridged form,
yeah.
and at the end of the retreat, and sorry if you are not able to read it clearly, I will read it so that Bior will talk a little bit about it before we proceed, because and we're going to get into that sooner to talk about other organizations. What can we do? Because Bior spent you know an hour or two thinking about these kind of things. So
Hmm.
at the end of the retreat, this was the Liberian Association of Metro Atlanta Strategic Planning Output Document. So at
Hmm.
the end of that thing, we had an output document. And so this was the abridged form vision, what a successful LAMA would look like. And based on that vision, we said a connected community where Liberian culture and people thrive. Then
Hmm.
mission. Mission, we say, is the purpose or the reason for the organization to exist.
Hmm.
And our reason was to foster targeted programs and sustainable partnership with support that we support the enrichment of the community and promotion of the Liberian culture.
Yeah.
Our values listed there: respect, the cultural, diversity, innovation, and so on. Then those outcomes, we have 5 pillars. One, we operate in a financially sustainable manner that enables us to fulfill our mission. 2, our governance structure is sustainable and enables us to efficiently and effectively fulfill our mission. We are fully engaged with our community and have mutually beneficial and sustainable partnership with key stakeholders.
Yep.
4, our members are capable of effectively and efficiently executing their roles and responsibilities and highly motivated to serve. And 5, LAMA is recognized as the catalyst for promoting Liberian culture that creates positive impact in the community. The reason I want to go through this is very important. So
Hmm.
tell me how, for those listening to us,
Sure.
yeah, how is this important? How has it helped you as the ED of the organization to kind of accomplish the things you set us to do?
Well, that's a great point. And Dennis, thanks for sharing that document, because I think that would create a lot of impact with your listeners to see, even though that's the abridged version, that's the very short one pager.
Yeah.
That's actually a very large document
Right.
and multiple spreadsheets. But your question is, how does that help a leader do what they need to do, right? I think that is foundational for any leader. If I have anything that resembles success right now, it's because, one, I stand on the shoulders of giants, people who came before me. I always build on what I meet, right? You never tear down. Wherever you are, you build on it. But two, taking that step back to survey the land before deciding how to go. It's critical. Let me be very practical with you because I sense that's where you're going. When you take the time to build out a detailed strategic plan, and if you want, you can even map it out over multiple years beyond your term, which is what we did in that. Not everything was achievable in one term, in 2 years. Yeah, but you still lay it out because you have to think about the future. Then it's because a wise man once told me, we always overestimate what we can achieve in the short term, but underestimate what we can achieve in the long term. So really smart leaders try to measure where they will be in the long term. That's what they call visionary. So that document actually keeps you honest. That document is what keeps me in line, right? And that document is where everything is built from. So when I meet with my executive team on every Tuesday night, it's on the basis of that document. I'm not coming up with new stuff randomly. I'm feeding off of the strategies that we laid out in that document, and we measure our success based on that. Every quarter, I have to meet with our board of directors, which is headed by Dr. Hawa Kone and the co-chair, Mr. Charles Russell, and a core of other board members. I meet with them every quarter. The basis of my report to the board of directors is that strategic planning document. That's how I convey to them what I view as success or what are some challenges that need to be overcome. That document also forms the basis of the budget. The budget is built directly from the document. So you know what every line item is supporting. And if you have to make some some tactical adjustments in the future, you have the whole document so you know where you can reallocate with the board's approval. And then finally, people say, hey, your meetings are very orderly and organized. The meeting agenda is based on the strategic plan, right? So everything that we laid out and how we lay it out in the meeting is based on the strategic plan. So without a strategic plan, as I've seen in many, many, many Liberian organizations, other organizations, they come to the meeting with an open slate and put open discussions on the floor. Well, if you do that, then you will go nowhere, right? Because everybody will pull you in one direction or the other. But when people see that things are orderly, they respond in sync. And then they focus their attention on those goals that we all agreed on. So it keeps all of us honest.
Yeah. No, planning is very good. I remember when I took over as the secretary of LAMA, that was 2014 or like that. One thing I found out was every time we went to a meeting, the secretary who took notes was not there. So we're always starting from scratch. So the first thing I thought was, and because the way we even kept the meeting minutes, I mean, you have to be like some genius. Yeah. Because you are writing like a 5-page to 10-page documents. This person said this person said this. So whoever kept the meeting is not able to organize that to come back. So they stay away. And so we have to
I remember those days.
Yeah. So we had to. So when I took over, I said, no, this is a template will go by. What was agreed on? What are the next steps? And this 3 parts. That's it. And so things started to go on better. But
thank you. Before you go on, I just want to mention that your work as the secretary of LAMA. I'm not just saying this because I'm on your show, but you clearly thought out what you were doing. And one of the things I admire you for is you're one of the first people I saw who utilized technology to leave a transition plan, right? You had a shared drive. Am I right? It was a
Yeah,
shared drive with all the resources available for whoever wanted to access them. So I want to publicly say thank you for
yeah.
doing that. That was a visionary move on your part.
Yeah, thank you. I always saw that every time we were starting from scratch, so I
Yep,
really said, brought my team around for us to kind of do that to leave it with the next group. But we talk about
absolutely.
the culture. Let me say, uh, how do you balance the need of a diverse diaspora community, right, while staying connected to the cultural roots of Liberia? Because sometimes people think that these are mutually exclusive, right?
Mm.
Oh, we are doing things the Liberian way, or this is our culture, or this is how we do things. So how do you balance that?
Well, that's a good question. And, it's something that we get asked sometimes, right? There are some who um, don't always appreciate the intermingling of cultures, if you will, right? So
Right.
if I'm at a Liberian program, then I only want to see Liberian stuff there. Or why is that other person in our program when they're from a different culture, right? But I think one of the things that we try to emphasize, and this is all part about building the Liberian brand, is that we took an intentional role in the broader African and Caribbean community. That's something that we hadn't done a lot of. I currently sit on the planning team that organizes the monthly African diaspora meeting, right, in Georgia. So that includes what we call One Voice Africa. That's all the African community leaders in Georgia, about 30 of them, or 30 of us. And then the Caribbean leaders, right? They have a entity called Caribbean Georgia Vote and other Caribbean entities that come together. It's not an organization, it's just a loose affiliation of like-minded people who want to see the best for our cultures across the board. So based on that, we came to the agreement that we would support each other's cultural events and share as much as possible. So when the Burkinabes have their event, they invite all the other leaders. In fact, we have a list of all the leaders. When Liberia has an event, we invite all the leaders, and you see some of these people come to our events for the first time. The Ivorian, countless events. And what happens then is we learn from each other and we learn how we are one. I have
Yeah.
a funny story. The Sierra Leonean entity in Georgia is not really an organization right now. They're trying to build it and regroup, but they
Mm.
had a huge celebration, an independence celebration, and they invited me as the guest speaker because
Mm.
they said they like coming to the Georgia events and sitting in our LAMA meeting. Foreign, other country leaders come to LAMA's meeting. They said they admire the structure and the order. It looked very orderly. They wanted us to share that with them so they can replicate that in their community.
Mm.
So while speaking at that event, guess what, Dennis? I saw a bunch of Liberians in the crowd. I said, "Oh, my man, what are you doing here?" They're like, "Oh, it's the ED." They invited me. I said, "Well, I didn't see you at the Lama one, but I see you at the Serlino one." Yeah, they invited me. Dennis, you know how many intermarriages we have in our African
Mm.
community here? So many Sierra Leoneans had Liberian wives, or Sierra Leonean women had Liberian husbands. It was amazing to see. So
Wow.
based on that, that tells you we're one. But if we
Yeah.
don't go to each other's events, we won't know the similarities. And we're stronger because of that. Because what happens
Mm.
is we can come together and target a problem and solve it. We talk about business and entrepreneurship. Guess what? That's not just a Liberian thing.
Right.
We meet on the third Wednesday of every month. So Every quarter, we dedicate one of those meetings strictly to entrepreneurs talking about what they are doing and how that will benefit the community. Those are the most engaging meetings, Dennis. I reach out to Liberian business owners and entrepreneurs to come on to talk about what they're doing. And we've had people do that. Again, we have to create that symbiotic relationship where we're
Yeah.
feeding off of each other and promoting each other. So I think that's a huge success.
And Bill, thank you for bringing that up because I mean, there's so many resources among us. I remember when during President Trump's first term, when immigration business got very tough, right? And people were confused. So there was we organized, we worked with other African organizations, mainly Nigeria, and we went to that conference for them to tell us what to do.
Yes.
It's amazing the mainly Nigerians that were lawyers, judges, and everywhere, up to even Supreme, state Supreme Court level.
Yes.
And it's like, okay, I mean, a lot of resources, and that was, and it's there, but in a lot of time we don't tap into that because we are in our own little group. And I will come to you later on how we do that on a national level when it comes to Liberian organization. But I'll keep that for now. This tells me that LAMA too has evolved over the years.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about that. How has that evolution been?
Well, that's a great question. But if I may, instead of saying LAMA, I would say the Liberian Diaspora has evolved. And it's a story that I share quite often when I speak. So what do I mean by that? When I talk to our elders, those who were here before, some of the people who formed the Liberian community here, that was sometime in the mid 70s, right?
Yeah, 1970, 76 is
Or
LAMA and Eula and stuff
but,
like that.
By the way, shameless plug, next year LAMA is supposed to be 50 years old.
Yeah.
So LAMA at 50 next year is going to be very big. But anyway, I digress. So they told us that back in those days in Atlanta, there were not a lot of immigrants, right? They're not diaspora people. It was a deep South, and most of them were around the airport area, right? Or South Atlanta, if you will.
Yeah.
And they needed a way to band together as, young students. There were no elders in the community at the time. It was all young people, young students. So they built this organization to band together. But, things evolved. Due to certain reasons, immigration inflow into Georgia increased, rapidly. And by the way, the pace is still high. So we went from a couple of less than 100 students just together here in an organization to now where it's estimated, and this estimate is pretty old, I think it was done with the Georgia State University by the Consul General, the former Consul General.
Yeah.
They estimate over 25,000 Liberians in the greater Atlanta area.
Yeah.
So we can't operate like a student organization anymore, right? We have to operate as almost as a conglomerate, right? You have to operate from a level where you're able to impact people who you don't see. And that's something that I tell my executive team all the time. LAMA is not an organization that just caters to the 50 people that in a meeting. We're an organization that has an addressable market of over 20,000 people, and we have to operate that way. So what does that mean practically? So right now, if you came into the Liberian community, you could do a Google search and quickly find the LAMA website. You can actually engage, sort of register as a member of the Liberian community in Georgia, make donations, even pay dues without talking to anybody. You can even check your payment history very easily without talking to anybody. The reason why that was so important for us was to create an environment where people can engage with the community without being personal friends of Dennis Jha, the secretary, or Bior Bropleh, the executive director or something. There are people who give donations that I've never met. We even have to figure out, okay, who is this person, so we can reach out to them and thank them and give them a receipt or whatever. It's a reality. So that level of using technology again, so that theme of technology continues, is critical to managing such a large community, right? And so we're very, very thankful that we're able to do that. I just wanted to give that practical example of how we have to think as members of the diaspora, and how what we do now is very different from even what was done 10, 15 years ago, right? I mentioned some of the projects that we do around Atlanta. Well, when we did a survey, I think it was in we did a survey before we did the strategic plan in 2016, if you remember. And we did another one in 2018. We found out that about 60% of the Liberian population in Georgia resides in Gwinnett County, right? Yeah, but significant portions are in DeKalb as well, and in Cobb County, Marietta, Powder Springs, Austell, Paulding, that Paulding County, Dallas, Hiram. But in our minds, everybody only exists in Lawrenceville, right? Yeah, but LAMA as a modern day organization cannot operate that way. We have to operate with the thought in mind that even if somebody lived in a town called Brazelton, a town that nobody's ever been, I don't know where that town is. Brazelton. Oh,
I told Liberians there now, so we have a good presence of Liberians in Brazelton.
Okay, how many Liberians are in Brazelton?
Maybe 5.
Okay, no worries. But the point is, you in Brazelton, Dennis, you and your family, any Liberian in Brazelton, deserves to benefit from the organization just as much as anybody in Lawrenceville or DeKalb County. And we have to be conscious of that. It's something that we talk about every day in everything that we do. How can we ensure that other parts of the community can partake or benefit from this? If we're doing a food drive, we can't just do food drives in Gwinnett. We have to do something in Jonesboro. We have to do something in Cobb. We have to do something in Fulton. And people send us feedback and say, guys, this is really good. I have never had this organization even acknowledge that people live here. But we have to be that way. That is the crux of the evolution that has happened with this organization.
Good. So what are some of the biggest challenges facing Liberian immigrants in Georgia in general, and members of your community, LAMA?
Yeah, that's a really, really great question, Dennis. So broadly speaking, immigrant communities, from what I've found, and again, I'm speaking very generally, there are many different viewpoints on this, but immigrant community members tend to be recluse. They tend to not want to show themselves out. It could be a number of reasons why that is. But even people who are here completely, by the book, still prefer not to be out there in that way, right? And so what that does is it limits us from being able to access resources. When we talk about venture capital, when I talk to Liberian business owners, why are we still doing subsistence, what I call subsistence business practices, right? Where if I'm doing a business, it's just me. I don't have any capital from the bank. I don't have any venture capital, influx into my business. It's just me. Whatever I can do, I will do. If I fall sick, the business pauses until I get better. If I retire, the business ends. The business retires as well. There's no going concern. If we don't open up, right, and that's where LAMA plays a huge role, is to create a scenario where businesses are able to tap into sources of to resources that can enhance them. So Dennis, instead of running that one shop, why not expand? Right? Why not have multiple shops in multiple Liberian hubs? That's a key issue facing many immigrant communities, is the fact that we intentionally don't tap into resources. So my friends in the Ethiopian community, in the Eritrean community, but especially the Ethiopian community, and I single them out because they're also very traditional, right? But they have a really, really, really good skill in accessing resources. And I think that's something we can all learn from them, right? They know how to reach out to state and local officials. That's something we struggle with in the immigrant community. How to engage with our leaders, because that's not something we typically do back home, right? Once you get in office, that's it. I will only come to you if I want to get something from you around election time. But the rest of the time, you're free to do whatever you want to do. Here, that's not the case. We hold our leaders accountable, but also our leaders have the responsibility to bring resources to their jurisdiction, right? Well, how will the people who are responsible for bringing resources to Brazelton engage with Dennis and his family? Dennis has to be aware of them and make an effort to engage. And so those are some of the things that we try to overcome with the broader African community, One Voice Africa, but also in LAMA. How can we get Liberians to engage?
That is very significant. And I think from what I've sensed, or working with Liberian communities and also talking to a lot of people, is what I describe has been too, and I'm not saying it's wrong or right, too back home focused, right? I was working at a university where this guy, when he graduated, I said, will you not get experience? He said, oh no, I'm going back, right? So we are here. It's like only our bodies are here. We are concerned about the election in Logan Town, then the election right there in our own community, right? We are concerned about building a house in the newer place, the Ralphie Highway, then even having a house here in America where you're going to get equity and something in your house. We are concerned about opening a business, in Ganta, then doing something here. So in fact, our churches, in fact, there are people who still pay their tithe in Liberia. So it's like we too back home focused. That even when we have organizations here, we try to that the people outside the very organization benefit even more than the members. I don't know what's your experience with that, and how do you try to see, okay, at least get yourself to a place, because if you are, for instance, if you are able to be part of the government in the USA, when you go back, I mean, people are expecting that you're going to bring something new. But if all through what you do and the people you relate to, they're all in Liberia, you don't get anything from here. So sometimes you are even pulling resources from Liberia and bringing them here because you are so back home focused. Let me, am I the only one observing this? Is this something that is that has come out in your engagement with Liberians?
Oh, absolutely. But first, let's give a disclaimer there, Dennis. I'm not running for any office or being a part of the government in the U.S. So I just in case a listener just jumped on, so they don't misconstrue. Okay, but that's just a joke. All right. So this is my perspective, Dennis. We have to. There are certain principles I will share. And these are very hard principles for us to accept sometimes, right? Migration, global migration, is not often reversible. Meaning when something causes people to move, to seek safety, shelter, greener pastures, whatever the case, in large numbers, it's not often reversible, meaning they're not going back for the rest of their lives, right? That's something it takes a little bit for some of our people to understand. So if that's the situation, we only have one life to live, right? Most people live to like 70 and then they go and meet their maker. What can you do within that time frame to enhance where you're coming from? So if the thought process is, I'm in the US, the greatest economy on earth, I have access to resources that 90% of the world will never see. We have to put things into that context. Am I able then to amass some resources here that can enhance the life of other people in other parts of the world? If that's what people are trying to do, then I tip my hats to them. I think that's a laudable effort, right? It is good that if you were able to move from somewhere with low resources to somewhere with high resources, and you're able to accumulate these resources legally to the point where you have access to be able to support other needy places, then I think that's a good thing, and that's fair, right? However, you made a point where you said sometimes people try to reverse things and try to get resources from Liberia or from the developing country to here. Yeah, I'm totally against that. Under no circumstances should we be trying to take scarce resources from there to spend it here. Even something as simple as inviting someone from Liberia to come and speak at your conference here or your convention and expecting them to give you a donation, I think that's, by principle, I think that's wrong. Should be the other way around. So that's why we're doing a massive fundraiser right now, where through our partners, we're able to allocate some medical supplies, right? And we're talking about medical gowns, face shields, face masks, prosthetics, like for cast people who have those types of injuries, involving your bones and whatnot, antiseptic, wipes, a whole slew of materials that we're loading up into a 40-foot container. We're fundraising here in our community to be able to get those materials shipped to Liberia to help some of those hospitals in need, because we've identified with our partners that the way to combat these, we live in a globalized world. The way to combat infectious diseases is to attack them at the source. So there's a benefit for using our resources here to send PPE materials to countries like Liberia, especially in the hospitals and clinics in the interior that often get the least amount of resources. If we can get these resources there with the help of the Liberian government, then we're actually helping ourselves here. So that's a very mutually beneficial situation right there for very little cost. So in that sense, I'm okay with that. But a lot of people, unfortunately, think that they migrated, but then they're going to go back. That's not very easy to do. Just for health reasons alone. I can use my mom as an example. She said she's going back to Liberia a couple of years ago. So she went. She was there, and then she had a eye infection. Something happened to her eye, and for a while she couldn't get any help. She had to come back here to do it. So she's been here for a couple of years now. I said, but mommy, you're not going back to go enjoy your, she said, I want to get blind in Liberia. Right. So health is
I'm going to ask you, because you said that, I'm going to ask you for some of the opportunities that exist for collaboration between diaspora leaders and the Liberian institutions and government, everything Liberia. But I will put that on a hold first, because we have I'll put that on hold. And I want to ask you, because as you talk about starting with your strategic planning to what you have been doing in LAMA, do you have any collaboration, or do you have any relationship with other organizations like yours to compare notes, to share success stories and challenges and do some things. Because the same way we have LAMA, you have an organization in OLM in Minnesota, you have LAP in Pennsylvania,
Yep.
you have all these organizations. What is the relationship like between you and any other state organization?
Well, that's a fantastic question. And they say iron sharpens iron, right?
Yeah.
LAMA, or the Liberian community, or let me just say, as the leader of the Liberian community here, I have benefited significantly from interacting with my colleagues in other Liberian communities, right? You start with OLM, Mr. Kamate Dian. We talk very often. I admire their model for how they're able to provide funding for their volunteers, because most of these organizations are volunteer-based, but they're at least able to provide some sort of seed funding for certain key positions, right? And that's something as LAMA, we built into our long-term vision for where we need to take LAMA to, right? So it's not some political entity that's voluntary at the same time. Those two don't mix very well. Politics and volunteerism doesn't mix, right? We want to get away from that. We want to be more like OLM or ISEC. I sit on the national board for the ISEC Alumni Association, and the Alumni Association has set up an endowment fund where we're able to, the goal is to be able to channel some of that money to sustain the staff. You don't want the staff to be volunteers, right? You want to at least be able to give them something, which we currently provide, but we want it to be sustainable in the future. You mentioned Pennsylvania. I'm very close to the head of the Liberian community in Pennsylvania as well, Ms. Sayandi Kopa. And well, some of the things I learned from her is, how she's engaging, again, with stakeholders in the community, right? And I've learned that from also, former leaders as well. For example, how do you engage a community to where how do you engage state and local officials to where they understand the importance of your community and give you the recognition you deserve? So for example, something that happened in Ohio under Mr. Rufus Dakote, I think you know him. I think he works with the African Development Bank now. He used to be the head of the Liberian Association in Ohio, and they will fly the Liberian flag on Independence Day as sort of a commemoration of Liberians living there, right? They're a cardinal part of that. So I've learned from all those leaders that came ahead of me, and we've been able to inculcate some of that into what we do here. So, for example, on Independence Day, all the key stakeholders write proclamations on behalf of Liberia. So the governor of Georgia, Brian Kemp, writes a proclamation every year under our leadership commemorating the Independence Day. We've gotten proclamations from the city of Atlanta, the entire city council, all of them signed. Lawrenceville, that doesn't even do proclamations, they've done it for us, right? So those things are things that we can learn and share with each other and say, hey, this is how we all become stronger. It's my hope that EULA, the umbrella organization, will also take up that posture.
I'm coming to EULA. I'm building something here. I'm coming to EULA, and they brought up Liberian organizations here. But what you have said, because I know you, I know at some point you will say, "Oh, Dennis, do you have a number for this person?" So based on you as a person, you are contacting these people, and maybe how has this been institutionalized, and who also is learning from you? Do we have like a consortium of library something, right? I know in EULA they have all these state organizations and stuff like that, but how do we, do this so that if you are not there, there is already something set into play so that we can always compare notes, learn from each other? Because there's no point starting from scratch all the time. If something is working for lab, you replicate it here. If something is working for LAMA, the same can be done in Indiana and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
How have you worked in that direction so that things work, as being institutionalized? instead of just because of Bior is a smooth. He's good with talking to people and getting things done. He's
Yeah,
accomplishing these things.
yeah, that's a fantastic point. So I have my notebook here. I noted that down. It's something I
Yeah.
will follow up on. It's a little bit easier just looking at the Liberian Association in Georgia because we document so well. And the team that supports the community has been together for at least 2 years. I
Mm.
always say, if you really want to be successful, stay at least 2 seasons, right? Stay the
Yeah.
first season, stay the second season, you will learn a lot. So I'm very confident that this team sees some of the successes that we've had and are able to take it to the next level. Again, I'm not going to go away after my term. My term ends December 31st this year. I will stay around and be a resource to the community just like I was before I was executive director. So that's fair. But to your point, how do we ensure that this is even broader to the broader Liberian community? That is something I'm not sure. A lot of what I have gotten was just based on my own outreach, right? Like
Yeah.
you rightfully said, it's not institutional anyway, but I've noted it and I will share with the leadership of EULA and other entities to see, how can we create a system where we can share best practices to where it's institutionalized. Because Dennis, as you know, a lot of these organizations, one of the challenges is you're only in office for what, 2 years, right? Most
Yeah.
organizations, just 2 years. So is then um, continuity kind of rests with your board of directors, right?
Yeah.
Who are the fiduciary leaders of your organization.
And Bior, thank you. You're going there, right? Because
Okay.
one of the reasons why these things is because after the 2 years we have elections.
Yeah.
Elections are often, they are all, most of them 95, 99% political. So
Yep.
there's a lot of chaos.
Hmm.
You have the board, you talk about their fiduciary responsibilities. You know, the way we operate these organizations, they are like political organizations. We run
Hmm.
campaigns. I mean, I was kind of targeted almost for running a bad campaign because if you want to win, you do all kinds of things. As a result, post-election conflict never ends.
Yep.
As a result,
Hmm.
these people that were there, they're going to go away and never look back. Maybe
Yep.
they will tweet. These are most of the time the problems that we face. Okay,
Yes.
so we talk about Liberian, the state organization like LAMA, the county organization, the alumni association. Things are the same.
Yeah.
How do we operate differently? That and maybe 90% of the problem happen with the board of directors and the leadership, having problem. They're going to be fighting everywhere.
Yeah.
That noise has kind of calmed down in Lama and OLM. So, what kind of model that is going to prevent those kind of things from happening? And we have a question here. I want to be respectful to our audience. So,
Sure.
please,
Sure. Sure.
yeah, Bendu Donor is asking, how are you getting state resources without losing your Liberian community? And Bendu, if you can add a little more. When you say losing the Liberian community, but if you understand that, you can please answer
Um,
that.
it's a little open ended, but I mean, I can take a
Yeah,
stab at it, right? How are you getting state resources without losing your Liberian community? Okay, so I think it's important to note that what we need to focus on, Dennis, is not a concept of a zero sums game, right? Where one person wins and one person loses, right? If Llama is getting state resources, there shouldn't be a loss attributed to that. What we should focus on is mutually beneficial relationships, right? And I gave the example of the medical supplies that we're sending to Liberia, right, this month.
mhm,
Um, let's use another example. Let's say eradicating food deserts, right? In the community. Food deserts is where in a geographic area it could be a, let's say, a 5 mile radius where there's not a lot of nutritional food available, right? And this has adverse effects on the development of young people, right? Young people are not able to develop the cognitive capabilities to excel. And so that leads to crime, that leads to a lot of negative vices. So if I'm able to engage a state or local official and say, hey, I have some constituents who reside in a food desert in Georgia, in Atlanta or in Gwinnett somewhere, and I need to work with you to build up some resources to target that, either through a meal program or a feeding program or some sort of assistance to that community. Okay, that's a mutually beneficial situation because you help me get the resources to eradicate this food desert. That means the young people there have a better chance of excelling at school. That will lead to a reduction in crime and whatnot. So it's a win-win, right? So let's all focus on win-wins. We can't think that allocating resources should lead to a loss. So that's the best way I can address Bendu's question.
Thank you. If you want to participate, please call the number on your screen, 605-313-6004. The code is 791403#. Unfortunately, Bendu is on the line, and so
Perfect.
Bendu, we're very happy that you joined the call. Thank you for joining.
Yeah, hi, Dennis, how are you? And
Great.
I kind of joined the show today, and I see this young gentleman. It's a very good conversation, good discussion. Like, I asked the question, and I agree. I didn't even know how to place the question because this is a problem I have. I live in Columbus, and our organization is one of the oldest organizations. Now, we got a leadership that is vibrant, young, and he's very innovative. But what happened here is, I think we are losing our community. And I always said I think we have lost it because they got the state funding. They decided to get state funding. When registered, got 501c3, but I don't know what happened. We got state funding. And now because we got state funding, we are not just a Liberian community organization anymore.
Okay.
We are now a community organization. So we got, like when we went to the last year Christmas party, I was very shocked. We have more Americans than we have Liberians. and it kind of troubled me. Because yes, we need to be integrated. We need to use the strength of each other in our communities, our local community, and in the United States, because we live here. But also, we cannot lose ourselves because we wanted funding. And now we get the funding. What he's talking about, we do have people working, and they give them stipends, they give them some kind of money, so they got jobs. But the bigger picture is we are losing our community. And sometimes when I say I sound ugly, but I don't care. I'm saying it because they're saying that, okay, we can't pay due. Like, grandpa, we don't pay that much due to be able to sustain the organization yet. But we need to find a way to sustain our organization, build our organizations up, be able to get benefit from the bigger picture, like from the state and from our local government. Because we are taxpayers, we are also voters. But at the same time, we cannot lose our community because we need that Liberian community. So I don't know.
Right.
I don't know how you're doing it in
LAMA. So before
it's a slippery slope.
Before you go, I want to ask you, what does not losing your community look like?
Okay, for me, not losing our community is keeping that. Like I go back to the Christmas party, the children's Christmas party. When you go to the Liberian children's Christmas party, we can't see more Americans. Yeah, we got a lot of American Liberians, but we can see more American, more Somalians, Mexican than we see Liberian children. That is a little bit of a problem. Yeah, we can invite our neighbors, but we need to have our children there because I always look at these things.
So that the Liberian culture can go to the next.
Can continue.
Okay. Thank you.
I always look at this, that we bring our children here. It's like you take a fish and put it in the pond, and it's quick to lose them. And so if we don't have that place, at least they can meet together once a year, once every 6 months. They will lose it.
Thank you.
I always tell people, when I African Americans said it, that's how I know Black Americans didn't become Black Americans because they sold into slavery. No, Black Americans became Black Americans because they lost their identity. And that was the way they were able to control them and keep them divided. And believe me or not, we can run right into that. And
Thank you.
that's what's here. So
Thank
I
you.
don't know how you're doing it.
No,
And maybe we need to, I don't know, it's something to be to look at. And maybe
no, we understand.
other African.
We understand it now. Thank you very much
Yeah.
for the clarity.
All right, I'm sorry for keeping you alone.
No. That's what we're here for. Bior, let me get your take. I have my own perspective too.
Yeah, sure. Dennis, what Sister Bindu is sharing, it's not unique, right? We hear that also. I will only caution that, correlation is not necessarily causation. So as leaders, when we encounter what was expressed by Bindu, we have to do the root cause of why we're not getting the outcomes that we're trying to get, right? You have to do that root cause analysis to see what is truly causing the erosion of your perception of cultural control, right? Let's just keep it in a bottle. But if you come to Georgia, the Liberian community in Georgia, under the auspices of LAMA. LAMA is a 501c3 for public benefit entity, right? So a lot of times the resources you amass is not because you're going to earmark specifically Liberians and ensure that they're the only ones who are going to get it, right? The partners that we work with, we're getting these resources often at no cost, with the understanding that we are a 501c3 organization. So we have to keep in the back of our mind what our legal status is and the work that we're trying to do for our people, right? So that has to be made clear. So when we do, for example, food drives, right? Where's the food coming from? Is a coalition of like-minded organizations. The Atlanta Food Bank is the one amassing the food. They're partnering with the Gwinnett Community Services, for instance, to distribute the food to the needy areas. When the food drops, it's dropped to you as an organization with the understanding that it's for public benefit. It's a public thing. You can't restrict who is coming for the free food. Does that make sense? So unfortunately, it depends on how you look at it. We promote it in our Liberian community and say, hey, come out and get your food. We'll be here at X, Y, and Z time. But we can't control who actually shows up. But we can control who we communicate to and encourage people to come. But once the food is out there, anybody can get the food, right? So we have to keep that in mind. Now, the second part to that is not necessarily bad for the Liberian brand, because now people from diverse backgrounds now recognize Liberia as a solution, or Liberians in Georgia as a solution provider. What organization is giving out this food? Oh, the Liberian community. I've never heard of Liberia. Thank you very much. You guys are doing great. People are praying for us and all. That is good for the Liberian brand, right? Even if the number of Liberians is equal to the number of non-Liberians that are coming for the food. So I just wanted to put that out there. What's your perspective?
Right. And you hit one that I like, is the root cause analysis, right? So our culture is not being, transferred over to our children, or our children are not interested in coming anymore, or they've been outnumbered. So let's do a root cause analysis and find out why. So I like that. So that's one thing I was thinking about too. The second thing is, and we learned that from our strategic planning meeting, is outcome, right? What is it that we want to accomplish? As Liberians, we want to pass our culture to our children. We want our children to still eat our Liberian food. We want our children to wear Liberian clothes. We want the Liberian history to be taught to our children. So we find out what is it that we want. Then we say, how are we going to accomplish this?
Yeah.
So we list ways in which we're going to accomplish it. So being 501c3 now, everybody can. The reason you are 501c3, meaning as you stated, we are giving you public resources, so don't discriminate in who gets it. So everybody's getting it. That's why everybody is coming. But if our goal is now we want to be able to teach Liberian culture, nobody starts off from doing that. We can do it.
No,
So we
no,
wear
we can do it.
Liberian clothes to go to the place that other people see that Liberian culture is being advanced. We are you are watching focused on Liberian history channel that is being so I had another crazy idea that even if July
Yep.
25th is coming, I want to be able to say the same way when Martin Luther King Day is coming, our students all around, right? The children in school
Mm-hmm.
here, they teach course things pertaining to that particular day. If July 26th is coming, why start off from developing a theme and sending
Yeah.
this to our Liberian churches, our Liberian organization, so that today if we go to LAMA meeting, we're going to learn about the Liberian languages,
Yeah.
right? So that Sunday that is taught in Liberian churches, is
Yeah.
taught in Liberian organization, is gone through. So everybody there is good. So instead of us saying this is going to be Liberian focused, other people now are learning more about Liberia, just like our children are learning. So it become mainstream that they don't even they feel very much encouraged to learn
Absolutely.
and pass it
Absolutely.
on. So two things again: the root cause and also what is it that we want to accomplish, and then we set steps to accomplishing that.
And I've noted that, Dennis. We learned a lot from Bindu's question.
Yeah,
But I like the idea of like you said, as you engage in these things, how are we spreading the Liberian culture, right? So
yeah,
why can't we have like packets showcasing
yeah,
Liberian culture that we're giving to the people with the food? Or in other instances,
yeah,
how can we share with Liberian families and say, hey, we work with some volunteers and we've come up with these informational packets that you can give to your, it could be trinkets, it could be um interesting,
yeah,
sayings, whatever the case may be, but giving it to families and say, hey, give this to your young people so they identify more with the culture. I will say
mhm,
the events that we participate in, and we get support from a lot of different people in the community. For example, the cultural carvings and artifacts that we use on some of the international expos we go to, is a Liberian that loaned them to us, Miss Elizabeth Armstrong,
mhm,
right? So people are providing resources to Lama to enhance the culture of Liberia, but we can
yeah,
also create bite-sized, trinkets that we can share with families
exactly.
to help them. Yeah, so that's a great idea.
And just like the Chinese, right? Almost everybody in America is eating Chinese food. How do we make Liberian fufu and soup, for instance, or palm butter?
Oh, Dennis,
The way we share it and the way we give it to other people, who knows? I have a group.
I have to comment on that when you're done.
Yeah, we have a group. We have a group in Massachusetts that now have the Liberian food in the grocery. They've been able to go through the different steps, and now they
Wow.
have the Liberian food there. So a lot of ways we can push our Liberian identity, our Liberian culture, and people like it. I remember everywhere I work. Everybody now, oh, I'm part of the so the American church. So yeah, so these things, and there are some questions coming. I have two.
Sure,
One
sure.
is from Speak Harmony. Say, how many Liberian organizations are here in Georgia, and how do we know which one is legit? I don't know. Yeah, Liberian organization. There's one LAMA, but
Yeah,
I think she's talking to other organizations, maybe county, state, or stuff like that. So,
sure, sure,
what's
sure.
your
Well, so there are quite a number of Liberian owned or Liberian run organizations, right? In Georgia. Um, Historically, the Liberian Association of Metro Atlanta, or if you call it by our other nomenclature, the Liberian Community Association of Georgia, historically has been here for nearly 50 years, and we provided, that anchor to the community. However, it's a free country. People on a regular basis form their own organizations. And I think I know the crust of where Speak Harmony is going when she says, how do we know which one is legit? So I'll answer it broadly by saying you can always go on the Georgia Secretary of State website and look up an entity, right, to see who runs it and whatnot. But I think where Speak Harmony, and I could be wrong, but I think where she's going at is some entities that are developed by people who want to maybe mimic the Liberian Community Association for their own ulterior motives. I think that's where she's getting to. My answer to that is everybody has to be vigilant, right? That's why we create an environment where the Liberian Association of Metro Atlanta is very transparent in its dealings and is very accessible, right? We work with a consultant to come up with the domain name for our organization, meaning that it has the highest hits on Google than any other organization, probably in the whole country. LiberianAssociation.org. That's a very powerful domain that if anybody even puts Liberians in Atlanta or Liberians in Georgia, that will come up, right? And once you're on that page, there's so many channels through which you can gain access to what is going on. Also, we put out a quarterly newsletter showcasing all the the projects and activities and happenings in a Liberian community over that quarter, and we run a WhatsApp channel that regularly showcases and announces activities in the Liberian community. We have social media channels that again shares activities that we're running. So if you're discerning, you can quickly see which organization is legit. And an organization that is nefarious will not have that track record. They will not have any form of reporting. And I hate to say it, but someone called me up and said an individual copied some members from the Liberian community group and formed their own fake group to put their, just pump their own personal information to those people. And, as long as and we talked to our legal advisor about this, as long as they're not using the Liberian, our name specifically, there's nothing we can do. But again, we always advise people to be very vigilant. In America, people can do all kinds of crazy things. So that's a great question from Speak Harmony.
Thank you. LiberianAssociation.org, and almost like that depends on what the people are doing. If somebody is trying to, she said, be an imposter and say, "Hey, I'm LAMA," definitely. But if somebody come out and say, "Oh, my association is Liberian Diaspora Organization of Braselton," that's the organization. Depending on what they're doing, if they are dividing free food and you want to go there and get free food,
it's a free country, right?
Yeah.
So I think where she's getting at is because we had reports of that a couple of years back, where I give you an example where when you have
go ahead. Fast spent.
Sure.
Is it please elaborate on how LAMA's leadership transitioned from president to CEO? I think we touched on that. And in the years past, the VP donated 10,000 towards LAMA Community Center. What's the start of the project? I can answer that question.
Don't lie. Yeah, you will answer that part of it.
Yeah, I will answer that part. And then I remember Mr. Honda because I think the president was to go to his association in North or South Carolina. So I think I know. So if you and the president talk about the 10,000K, that 10,000K will blow you a long time.
Okay. Well, I can tackle the first part of it if you.
Sure.
Yeah. So, Mr. Honda, great question. Our evolution from the nomenclature of president to what it is now, executive director, was very intentional. Dr. Will Jala, I believe, was the head of the Constitutional Review Committee, I believe, at the time, where a lot of input went in and some of this stuff was spearheaded by the late Bishop William Harris, to where he always say, "Hey, let's be less political." Sometimes in nomenclature is what makes people feel that it's a political entity. Let's use different names for what we're doing, but more importantly, let's change the structure of how we build leadership teams. Dennis, you and I have shared many funny stories of very unqualified people coming into leadership in key roles simply because they had a bunch of people that voted them into office, right? People were becoming treasurers without any financial background, and other important tasks. So one of the key things that happened with that change, Mr. Honda, is that instead of having all the positions in an executive team electable, they opted to only have the leader electable. And all other positions are appointed based on qualifications and are approved by the board of directors. So immediately that negated that whole situation where unqualified people were coming into leadership, and it honed in on those who actually had the skill sets, and most importantly, there was accountability. Because one of the things that we experienced was when people get elected into office, then they assume that they're accountable to nobody except the person that elected them. So they don't want to follow the plan. They don't want to listen to directives from the board.
Especially if you are president, the president who is your secretary is from another opposition, the so-called opposition.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that's another problem. You have people from different camps ending up on a team and weren't able to work together. So that's how we evolved from that to where things now are very stable. If you want to get involved in the organization, one, you can't just walk off the street. There are now stipulations for how engaged you need to be, certain qualifications before you leave. But Dennis, tell us about the 10K. I'm interested.
Right. Prior to, and he said the 10K, I moved to Georgia 2013. By that time, the 10K was already given because the process of this LAMA or hall started, and then Vice President Boakai, I understood, donated $10,000. And he said, "Oh, I need someone who can be like a guarantor." And that's how he suggested Mr. Alexander Cummings, who is now, political leader of ANC, to be the one to work with us, because he said, "Well, I can just give 10,000 and turn my back. I want to make sure that you are, doing what you're supposed to do with it." And so Mr. Cummings too started working with. So when I became secretary, I worked closely with Mr. Cummings, how we can generate. And remember, Mr. Smith was heading that LAMA Community Hall project. Remember the slogan, "The train that left the station"? And so we worked on this, and by 2015, under President Leo Mumba, he was the president at that time, we were able to acquire our own community hall. It was like a plaza, and eventually when we got that, we're paying like $3,500 in rent every month. So when the administration of so under Leo, I was secretary. So under the new administration of Yesendi, where I was the chief of staff, I have a very fancy title called the principal staff officer. I was responsible for recruiting and running the office of the president. We ran that organization until we ran out of money. I believe things, just like we always said, things were not. It appears to me that acquiring the hall, we only thought on the best case scenario. If we have this hall, we have people renting the hall every Saturday, this is how much we're going to make.
Yeah.
And so with 3,500, we can do that. But when we started operating, we met a lot of challenges. The community was divided at that time. We will be in the hall having a program, and somebody will pretend to be your neighbor and call the police and say, "These people are making noise. Get them out of here." And so when that happened twice, because there were detractors in the community fighting. So one thing led to the other. We couldn't keep up with it. I remember when Yesendi came to the leadership, we had very good amount of money from our inauguration, everything. And
Mhm.
all that money went to just sustaining the hall. We couldn't make money from it. So at the end of the day, we couldn't sustain it, and we went belly up. We lost it.
Yeah.
And so anytime people are talking about community hall, I just tell them, please talk to one of us. Don't just go into it.
Yeah.
So Mr.
And
Honda, we lost it. We had it and we lost it.
and I just want to add to that, Dennis, because those discussions happen all the time when people say, "Oh, why can't you get a hall?" Every scenario is different.
Yeah.
But one of the challenges is if you're operating an entity that's only in office for 2 years, you need to build in really strong governance
Yeah.
that will have the continuity to manage a property, right? Because just because you're managing the hall does not mean you're going to be successful on day one, which is what I tell people. You still need a run rate of 2, 3, maybe up to 5 years for
Yeah.
the entity to be profitable. So the question I pose to somebody, the challenge is who is going to take a loss for 2 years? And those are significant losses, by the way, potentially, right? It's not like when you open the hall on January 1st, when you get into office, the profits start rolling in.
Yeah.
And chances are you're going to be incurring some losses. So you need to be strong enough to absorb those losses when there are losses, and then carry on. Hopefully, if there are profits. So that's very
Mhm.
complicated for most organizations to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And we came to a point where about escalation of commitment. Oh, this is our hall, this is the pride of the community. So we're going to maintain it no matter what. Until you may end up selling one of you to maintain it. And we didn't want
Yeah,
that.
that's tough. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I know we have so much more to go. Let me. So Benu is also saying. So what do you think about non-Liberian serving as board members of Liberian organization? I think we're going to have a separate meeting on just organizations, right? Just because I talk about like the political structure that we have. Always we voting. They are almost like political parties. We have camps, and people run, they win, and so they most of the time after election, things are almost in chaos.
Yeah.
Until by the time you get it back, it's time for them to go. Two times Liberians, most of the time in my experience, attend meeting to put a leader into office and to get a leader out of office. Those are the two packed meetings.
Yeah.
In between, nobody comes to meeting, nobody cares.
Yeah.
So, but answer that question, and then we
Yeah.
can.
Sure.
I will call you back so
Oh,
we can just talk about organizations.
sure. I'll be happy to discuss from the consultative lens. But where's the question? It disappeared.
Okay. So, what do you think about members,
Non-Liberian
non-Liberians?
serving as board members of the Liberian organization. So that was a question, Dennis, that came up not only during our strategic planning process, but also during the constitutional review process, right? Because the argument was, they said you must be a Liberian,
Yeah.
a Liberian citizen. But quite often, most of the people in leadership are not Liberian citizens. They are of Liberian descent, but they're not Liberian citizens. They're U.S. citizens. They're naturalized U.S. citizens. So it wasn't accurate to have a statement like that in the Constitution. It wasn't serving us. And then the question was, okay, there are some people who are of Liberian descent, meaning maybe my parents or grandparents are Liberian, but I was born here. Am I a Liberian citizen? No, you're not a Liberian citizen. You're a U.S. citizen, but you have Liberian, affiliations or whatnot. Long story short, I think what was done was to be completely accurate and transparent. That phrase was removed. You don't have to be a Liberian to serve on the board. That's not realistic. Anyone, if they have, interest, can be a part of the organization and serve on the board. You don't even have to be a Liberian to be a member of the Liberian Association. Anyone can be a member of the Liberian Association.
And that's what 501c3 is, right?
Yeah.
If you discriminate on the basis of nationality or on the basis of religion or any other thing, uh, government may not, be so inclined to give you money, right? That hey, this
Exactly.
organization only Liberians can. And sometimes I wonder when people even say that, what do you have to present here to tell people that you are
That's the
Liberian?
question. How can
Right.
you verify who's Liberian?
Right. I came from the refugee camp, and we had the laissez-passer. Is that what you want me to show, or is it Liberian passport? What is it? Or is it
Yeah,
my name, or what's about my children?
right.
So it's we can continue
It's
to
true.
do that.
It's
I
true.
mean, it's in the constitution too. Your father should be there, even in
No,
Liberia, right? I
that's
asked the
not in the Constitution. Oh, you mean in the Liberian Constitution?
I mean, in most other
Oh,
organization constitution, they
yeah,
have
that
it
was
there.
removed. That was removed
Yeah,
from
I
our
know that.
Constitution. Yeah.
If you come from, it's a to be member of the Grand Cru County Association, either your father from Grand Cru, your mother from or stuff like that. There's no way for us to test that, and so let's define what we stand for, and anybody who agrees with that, who agrees to live by those things that we write down, this is how we want to behave. Okay, if somebody agrees to do that, let them come. The more
Yep.
the merrier.
True.
Mr. Bropleh, our time is fast spent. I don't want to keep you beyond our 1 hour 30 minutes limit, even though we kind of a little bit past that. But and I was throwing a lot of questions at you. But my
Mm-hmm.
final question will be: we have these diaspora organizations, being it
Mm-hmm.
the state like LAMA, being it the Alumni Association, and even the bigger organization ULA, right?
Yes.
Sometimes, most of the time, the way we raise funds is membership dues, and
Mm-hmm.
or we say let's pay convention fees. We fly from everywhere. By the time I get to Philadelphia to attend my high school convention or do this, I spent personally, I spent almost $1,000. So if we go
Yeah.
to that convention and raise 100,000, if you take out all the expenses, we're at a loss.
Yeah.
Okay. So most of the time, the way we raise money, the way we do all these things is like, as one wise man told me, you can be at the mouth of a river and wash your hands with spit. We are in the greatest country in the world, and then we
Right.
are still digging in our pockets to sustain these organizations. What can we do differently to raise
Um.
funds and also to make this organization viable? We can live on dues, it's
Yes.
not sustainable, and we got to find a way so that the member people who are part of the organization benefits. But if we always say, let's go, let the money and send it to Liberia, so always we are digging in our pockets to send the money. I don't think that's sustainable because I lived here and I saw that we can sustain that effort.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right about that, and it's a great question, by the way. Um, Sustainability is something that is, top of mind at almost every discussion that I have. How do you sustain um, your organizations? So I'll take it from this standpoint. Let's start with how you budget, how you plan, right? Because how
Mhm.
you plan will determine how you budget, right? In our budget, administrative expense, we try to keep it under 15%, and that coincides with membership dues. So membership dues directly goes towards administrative expense, right? So we're providing that seed money for an organization to run, which is a respectable 15% or less. And then the understanding is that now with that empowerment, you're going to achieve the goals of the organization, right? So anything beyond that is fundraised, right? Through multiple means, either through donations, um, grants. So I mentioned our website system. Lama only had to pay for the initial startup cost of that website system back in 2022, but it's the whole backend is funded by a grant that we got from Microsoft. So every year they provide that grant that gives us free access to all the Microsoft software that we use, the Azure database that hosts all of our data, which is the back end of the website, and the email service that we use. So it pains me a lot when I see organizations using generic Gmail and Yahoo as their organizational email, right? It doesn't lend credibility. So back to Bennu's question, the Liberian Association of Metro Atlanta, you will know it's legit because our domain is in all our emails. My email address is executive_director@liberianassociation.org. So you know it's legit, right? So that's, in a nutshell, that's how LAMA operates.
And when you leave power, the next leader going to use that email.
It's turned over, yeah.
Yeah.
But we've seen situations where people carry their Gmails with them and whatnot. But in this case, I will turn it over. And then broadly speaking, though, the question then becomes, how do you develop strategic partnerships? This morning, I was a part of a panel with the Atlanta Black Chamber, where the whole discussion was on partnerships, right? And what I share with the organizations that I consult with, including EULA, is that we have to stay away from using conventions as a means of fundraising. We have to be more sustainable by developing these strategic partnerships. So what does it look like? Let me give an example. You have to understand your market, your addressable market. How many Liberians are we dealing with here? Okay, let's say roughly 500,000. Once I know that number, that's the basis for which I can engage with entities that will be interested in that number. So I can go to SM Brussels, or I can go to Ethiopian Airlines and say, hey, listen, I want to help you create a positive, strong brand equity with the 500,000 Liberians who live in 500,000 fairly mobile Liberians who live in the US. And I would like, for you to contribute, I'm just using a rough figure, $10,000 or $15,000 or $20,000 towards helping us achieve our goals. And in return, we will help you through all of our member chapters create that positive brand equity. Now you're talking. Once you have 4, 5, or 6 of those kind of partnerships, then you've established sustainability, right? So it's not you don't see those mass fluctuations in revenue, right? That's one way to look at it. But also, I just want to touch on that point that you raised, because I know we talked about it before. Doing the math on what is the true cost. I'll give you an example. So a lot of organizations will come up and say they're doing, let's say, a food bake sale, or their food sale. And you ask, where are you getting this food from? Oh, our members are donating the food. Okay. So people are donating the food. You sell the food. The pricing of the food is not based on the true cost of the materials, right? So then you come up with a figure. Let's say at the end of the day, we have $2,000. And then you say, that's my profit. Wait, how is it a profit? Is that the true cost? How much did that food cost that somebody donated to you, and the time that you spent doing it? So I tell people, sometimes if we do that math, we'll realize that it's probably just easier to ask somebody for the money than to even do the food sale. You will make more money. Or if you look at convention, I remember we went to a EULA convention where there were thousands of people there. How much did that cost people to go to that convention, and how much did they raise as a result? If the ticket is only $50 or $75, a bulk of the resources is siphoned from the Liberian community to other communities like hotels, rental cars, airline tickets, right? 75 or 80% of the true cost is not benefiting any Liberians, benefiting corporations. And then we got a little bit left and say, wow, we made some money from this convention. No, probably space it out. Instead of every year, maybe do it every 2 years or 3 years. Utilize virtual conventions to save costs.
Thank you. Well, Mr. Bropleh, thank you for the time. At this time, I want to just get a few words from you as we close. It's been a nice time talking to you, and hopefully we're going to get you back.
Well, after December 31st, I'll be a free man, so I can join whenever. But yeah, in closing, I just want to thank you for what you've achieved here. You're definitely contributing to enhancing the Liberian brand, and I think it's recognizable what you and your team at FOL have achieved over the years. We want to, as the Liberian community, we want to harken back to that vision to create an engaging environment where Liberians thrive. And we want to continue to partner with Liberians to define what that means and evolve at the time as the times change. We're pleased with where we came from and where we are now. I always like to look at progress holistically, right? I don't look at a snapshot. I look at progression. The most important things to me in analytics are what? Quantity, quality, velocity, and impact. And that's how I evaluate everything that I do. That's how I evaluate the work that I do with the Liberian community. And I'm humbled for the opportunity to have served this community for the last 4 years. And I'm very pleased with the feedback that I'm getting from members in the community saying that we're happy and proud of where the Liberian community has come from over the time. If there's any success, I take no credit. Personally, I just say it's because I stand on the shoulders of giants. And one of those giants is the host of FOL, Mr. Dennis Jha. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think Mr. Honor is not clear on the 10,000. When I said we acquired the community hall, right? We acquired the property, and that's the 10,000 we use. We use it for, I think we were there for maybe 2 years or so, or 3 years, and then we could no longer pay the rent for the community center, so we lost it. All right, and Mr. Cummings, even at that time, Mr. Boakai, who was President Boakai now, was here, you know, and he visited us in the community. We have programs there, you know, so this is no secret. But just like any other business, you know, we lost the hall, and I believe people have lost things, and so if you want to acquire a hall, you know, make a phone call to Atlanta and see, so that you don't repeat some of our mistakes. Again, Mr. Bropleh, I want to thank you. I want to thank all those who are tuning, even those who are going to tune in later. Tomorrow, join me at 4 p.m. Eastern. We're going to be live on the radio in Monrovia, Kia FM, and we will be talking some current issues. President addressing the UNGA, the arrival of former President Weah and what happened. His house, we learned, was on fire, and all kinds of things have happened. And then the ongoing arson case of Capitol Hill, the new developments. We're going to talk all that. You don't want to miss it. Also, members of the Liberian Diaspora Forum, they are planning it for this weekend. They're going to be here briefly to tell us, you know, what to expect at the conference this weekend. Until then, we never close the broadcast without playing our song that says, "We are Liberians. We are all Liberians." Whether you are from Metro Atlanta or OLM or LAB or any other organization, we are all Liberians. What is incumbent upon all of us is to do our very best to make our country the glorious land of liberty. Have a good night, and God bless you.
Thank you, Dennis.
We are